Hotspot with Loveth.
The dusty streets of Amaka felt both foreign and familiar to Daniel as he walked toward a quaint cafe he used to visit years ago. After almost 2 decades, he was back, not as the wide-eyed teenager he'd once been, but as a seasoned architect, here to oversee a new housing project. He glanced around, taking in the little changes, the new paint on the walls, the bright umbrellas out front. He didn't expect to feel nostalgia in a place he hadn't thought about in years, but it was there, pressing at his heart. As he ordered a cup of coffee, his gaze drifted across the cafe, and he froze. There, at a table by the window, was a woman he'd recognize anywhere, Arukwe. She had changed, of course. Her once braided hair now flowed down her back in loose waves, and her face held an air of maturity. Yet her laugh, as she spoke animatedly to a friend, was exactly the same, filling the room with warmth. He couldn't bring himself to approach her, feeling a tightness in his chest. There was so much left unsaid between them, things he'd never had the courage to address. But before he could second-guess himself, Erica looked up. Their eyes met, and her laughter stopped. Recognition flickered across her face, followed by something else, surprise, maybe even a hint of sadness. Slowly, she excused herself from her friend and walked over. "Daniel," she said, her tone laced with disbelief. "I can't believe it's you." "It's been a long time, Erica," he replied, feeling a wave of emotions he hadn't anticipated. They exchanged small talk, each keeping their guard up, but the tension between them was palpable. After a few minutes, she suggested they catch up properly and gave him her number. Daniel pocketed it, wondering if he had just opened a door best left closed. A few days later, they met at a nearby park, a place they used to frequent as kids. The laughter and playfulness of their childhood seemed so distant now, replaced by a cautious civility. They shared stories about their lives, his successful architectural career, her thriving art gallery. Yet both could feel the gap, a void left unaddressed by their surface-level conversation. After a while, Erica couldn't hold back. "Daniel," she said, her voice softened by vulnerability, "why did you stop talking to me back then?" He looked away, guilt weighing heavy on him. "It's complicated, Erica. I was young, and scared." He struggled to find the right words, not sure how to explain that he'd abandoned her when she needed him most. "You were my best friend," she continued, her voice trembling slightly. "One day you were there, and the next, you were gone." Just like that. Daniel swallowed hard, feeling the enormity of what he'd done. He knew she deserved the truth, even if it painted him in an unflattering light. "My dad found out that your family was involved in that scandal. He told me to stay away from you. Said you were trouble and that I'd ruin our family's reputation by being seen with you." Erica's face fell, and Daniel saw hurt flash in her eyes. She had known, of course, that her family's financial troubles had become the town's favorite gossip. But she hadn't realized it would cost her the only true friend she'd had. "I was young and stupid," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I chose my family's approval over you, and I'll always regret that." Erica was silent for a moment, digesting his confession. When she spoke, her voice was laced with bitterness. "So, it was easier to believe I was the problem. Just like everyone else did." Daniel reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "You don't even know the whole story," she said. "That scandal wasn't what it seemed. My family was accused by a business rival. We spent years fighting to clear our name. It drained us financially, but we were innocent." He stared at her, his mind racing. All this time, he'd believed the rumors, never questioning them. "Erica, I'm so sorry. I didn't know." She shook her head, holding back tears. "You didn't want to know, Daniel. You were supposed to be my friend. But you left me when I needed you most. The words struck him like a blow. He realized now how deeply his absence had scarred her. She'd had no one to lean on, forced to navigate the fallout of her family's ordeal alone. In the days that followed, Daniel couldn't stop thinking about Erica's words. He wanted to make amends, but he wasn't sure how. Determined to prove he'd changed, he started visiting her gallery, admiring the paintings she'd curated with such care. Slowly, they rebuilt their connection, their conversations less tense, more natural. One evening, Erica invited him to an art event she was hosting. It was a milestone for her. A prominent client from Lagos had shown interest in her gallery, and she hoped this would elevate her business. But just before the event, rumors about her family's old scandal resurfaced, threatening her reputation once again. She was devastated, and Daniel saw the same pain in her eyes that had haunted her years ago. This time, he couldn't stand by and watch. He reached out to his contacts in town, clarifying the truth about Erica's family, speaking to local influencers and even the press. His efforts paid off, and the client agreed to stay. "Thank you," Erica said, her voice thick with emotion as she approached him after the event. "I didn't expect you to stand up for me like that." He smiled, relieved to see her happy. "I owe you so much, Erica. I'm just trying to make things right." Over the next few weeks, their bond grew stronger. They spent evenings reminiscing about their past, talking about their dreams, and learning about the people they had become. Daniel admired her strength and resilience, seeing how much she had endured and yet come out stronger. Erica, in turn, was surprised by his sincerity, recognizing that he genuinely wanted to make amends. But she couldn't shake off her doubts. Could she really trust him again? She'd built a wall around her heart, one that years of hurt had fortified. One evening, as they sat on a bench in the park where they'd spent so many childhood afternoons, Daniel turned to her. "Erica, I know I hurt you, and I can't change the past. But I want to be here for you now, however you'll have me." Erica met his gaze, seeing the depth of his regret and the sincerity in his eyes. Slowly, she felt her walls begin to crumble. Maybe it was time to let go of the pain she'd carried for so long. She took his hand, feeling a surge of warmth she hadn't felt in years. "Maybe we can start over, Daniel," she whispered. Months passed, and their rekindled friendship blossomed into something deeper. They became inseparable, bound by the love they'd both hidden for years, masked by their own wounds and fears. What they shared now was a bond tempered by forgiveness, by the resilience they'd both had to cultivate. One evening, they returned to the cafe where they'd first seen each other, laughing as they recounted the awkwardness of that initial reunion. They realized that sometimes, people drift apart only to find their way back, stronger than before. As they left the cafe hand in hand, Daniel felt a sense of peace he hadn't known he was missing. Beside him, Erica looked up, her heart lighter than it had been in years. For both of them, the past had finally loosened its grip, leaving room for a new beginning, a beginning that was no longer overshadowed by the lies between them.